So since we wrapped up with E&M last week, this week we're going to discuss the modifier 25. Hey everyone, I'm Victoria, and on my channel I discuss tips, tricks, tutorials, and bring you into the conversation that's going on in the medical coding field. Modifier 25 is used on an E&M service when a significant separately identifiable procedure is done on the same day. So for example, if a non-Medicare patient comes in for their chronic care management visit that day and they have to get their flu shot, you would bill a 25 modifier on the E&M service because there was a significant and separately identifiable procedure, that injection, done on the same day. So just because you have an E&M and any other CPT code doesn't mean you automatically put on the 25 modifier. There are some services, particularly labs is a big one, where you don't have to put on the 25 modifier in addition to the E&M on the same day. So it's important to have maybe an edit in your system to identify when that 25 modifier is missing and needs to be put on, either through your regular EMR or through separate charge scrubbers like an ePremise or a White Plume. Now, a lot of people will say that if you're going to bill the E&M and the procedure on the same day, they should be a different diagnosis. And that is a good rule of thumb, but it doesn't fit necessarily every scenario. So let's go over a couple of different scenarios. Scenario 1, patient comes in for their routine lupus appointment, and while they're there, they have a funny looking lesion on their arm. Provider looks at it and goes, let's take a biopsy of that. We have an E&M supported because of the patient's condition for lupus, but then we have something separate because we did a biopsy on the same day, significant, separately identifiable. So that's an easy clear-cut scenario where we would need a modifier 25 on that E&M service. Although in some cases, maybe we should just be billing the procedure. So I'll give you scenario 2. Patient comes in, oh my God, doctor, I can't hear out of my ear. Something's wrong with it. Can you take a look? Provider comes in, looks in the patient's ear and goes, oh yeah, it's impacted with cerumen. Gets out their curette, cleans out all that impacted cerumen. You would just bill for the impacted cerumen removal, the 69210, because that whole procedure resolves that presenting problem. There really wasn't anything significant and separately identifiable done. Now, where we might be able to bill an office visit on the same day is if they did have some separate condition that was managed that couldn't have just been like a over-the-phone refill. So now think about this again. Patient comes in, oh my God, doctor, my ear hurts and I can't figure out what the heck's going on. Can you take a look at it? And the provider looks in and goes, oh yeah, you have impacted cerumen, take that out. And the provider looks in and goes, oh my God, you are really red and infected in there. Can you open your mouth? Oh gosh, you're red and infected in there too. Oh yeah, oh, you've been feeling feverish for a while? Okay, I think this might be an infection. Let me give you some antibiotics, go home, rest a little bit. So now we've got more workup. That patient, they examined other areas, they were asking some history, some questions there, not just the routine, the patient that came in and got their impacted cerumen removed and was on their merry way. So even though maybe it's the same diagnosis, although I guess we could probably put on an infection code of some sort, it's significant enough that it might be separately identifiable for a low E&M service in addition. Scenario 3, patient comes in, I'm slicing an avocado, doc, hit my thumb. Happens. So if the patient just comes in and just needs a couple of sutures, boop, 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 you're all done. Probably just going to bill the procedure. You're not going to bill that office visit and tack a 25 on it just to get an office visit billed. Now, if the patient comes in and said, hey doc, I was messing around in my garage, bumped my head on a giant shelf, lacerated my scalp, then the provider might have to go, okay, so did you lose consciousness? Are you feeling okay? Are you having headaches? Do you feel nauseous at all? That's different from the patient who just sliced themselves with an avocado and need a little bit of stitches. This is a patient that we have to do more of a neurological exam on. And in that case, we might actually be able to support, maybe be able to support an office visit on the same day if we support it with the documentation to show that this wasn't just a routine laceration, that we had to do separate examinations of that patient. And it's not always the easiest concept to explain to providers. All right, thanks for agreeing to meet with me today. So I wanted to talk to you about your modifier 25 usage and when you can't use an office visit and a procedure code on the same day. So are you telling me I have to schedule the procedure on a separate day? No, what I'm saying is you can't bill a procedure code on the same day as an E&M unless it was a significant, separately identifiable service. But they had an office visit to evaluate the problem, so how do I get paid for it? Well, every procedure has a little bit of an E&M component kind of built into the reimbursement. You're not going to do something invasive on the patient without obviously taking a little bit of history to make sure they're not going to have an allergic reaction or don't have any counterindications. And also you're going to do a little bit of exam of that area. Yeah, but what if it's a new patient? Because if it's a new patient, I have to intake all of that extra history for them. Well, Medicare actually has a policy in their CCI policy manual, the Correct Coding Initiative, that says that just because the patient's new doesn't mean that you can bill the E&M and the service on the same day. Like the fact that the patient is new alone doesn't warrant the E&M service. Yeah, I'll just schedule them to come back for the procedure on a different day. So make sure you are empowering yourself with those policies of when it is and is not appropriate to use the 25 modifier. Check those LCDs about what they're saying. Don't bill an office visit on the same day. Check those CCI edits. Look at that CCI edit policy manual that says that about the new patients. There is a policy in CCI that says if a new patient has a procedure on the same day, the fact that they're new alone doesn't warrant to bill an E&M on the same day. It still has to support that modifier 25 policy of it being significant and separately identifiable. And if you ever want the full descriptions of those modifiers, check Appendix A in your CPT book. Appendix A, significant separately identifiable evaluation and management service by the same physician or other qualified healthcare professional on the same day as a procedure or service. It may be necessary to indicate that on the day a procedure or service identified by a CPT code was performed, the patient's condition required a significant, separately identifiable E&M service above and beyond the other service provided or beyond the usual preoperative and post-operative care associated with the procedure that was performed. A significant, separately identifiable E&M service is defined or substantiated by the documentation that satisfies the relevant criteria for the respective E&M service to be reported. See the E&M Services Guidelines for instructions on determining the level of E&M service. The E&M service may be prompted by the symptom or condition for which the procedure and/or service was provided. As such, different diagnoses are not required for reporting of the E&M services on the same date. So like I said, the patient that had the impacted cerumen or the scalp laceration would have the same diagnosis, but would support the extra E&M because of the extra examination components and intaking of histories, evaluations, and so forth. This circumstance may be reported by adding modifier 25 to the appropriate level of E&M service. And we'll have to be very careful about this going forward with our office visits because in the 2021 documentation guidelines, it's very clear that anything that you are separately billing for should not go into your calculation for your E&M service on the same day. I hope that helped clarify some of your confusion on the 25 modifier. If so, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you make sure that you get notified whenever I post another one of these episodes. I will see you in the next episode, and until then, just keep on coding on.